Hi, John McElroy here, always talking all things automotive. Today we're going to talk about Africa. As you probably know, a lot of automakers see Africa as the last untouched market that could provide tremendous growth. And so there's a lot of automakers focusing on what the potential is there. But did you know there's actually an African car company, or one that's trying to get going, from Uganda? It's called Kiira Motors Corporation. And we've got the CEO, Paul Musasizi, who is going to be talking about it. We've also got Andy Watchorn from Kettering University here, because Andy's the guy who turned me on to this whole thing. But first, thanks for taking the time to join me today. And Paul, I think it's really cool that you're starting a car company in Uganda. But are you crazy? I mean, this auto industry is going through so much turmoil right now. What is the opportunity that you see?
Well, starting a vehicle manufacturing company in Uganda is the natural thing to do. You see, Africa as a whole right now is in excess of 1.4 billion people, with a motorization rate of 49 vehicles per 1,000 people. Uganda specifically has a motorization rate of 14 vehicles per 1,000 people. Clearly, the continent and our nation are underserved, on the backdrop of the fact that more than 90% of the cargo and the passengers move on road. Again, that is because the other aspects of the transportation infrastructure, like air and sea and rail, are very far from where we need them to be, and perhaps they're going to be further away. So it makes sense that the backbone of African industrialization for the next more than a century is going to be founded on mobility industrialization.
Very
and that's what we are working to tap into.
Okay, so Kiira is going to make cars, trucks, buses, what?
So our prospective product portfolio includes buses, and that is our go-to-market product. We have already done 2 platforms in that space, and I guess I'll talk about them a little bit more. But we're also looking at making trucks to handle the cargo requirements. Uganda, like so many African countries, are landlocked. So the port is a neighboring country, and then you move by road to move cargo. At one of our entry ports to Uganda, we have over 2,000 trucks cleared every day, moving in cargo, mainly from Kenya, where we have the most accessible port to the sea. So trucks are going to continuously be a very important aspect. And we are looking to see how we can work with a very well-established OEM looking at the African opportunity to introduce competitive trucks, that is pickup trucks and SUVs as well, in the medium term.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But if I can interject, the most immediate opportunity was buses, because there's a lot of motorcycles and cars on the road. Is that right?
Absolutely. You see, Kampala, which is the capital, has a day population of about 6 million people today. And this is projected to go in excess of 10 million people by 2040. Now, the interesting part of it is that today, of the 6 million, about 1.5 reside in Kampala. Now, the rest of that number moves out of Kampala in the evening and moves into Kampala in the night. So this creates a lot of congestion on the road at the peak time, in the morning and in the evening. One better way to ensure that that problem is solutioned right is buses. And when you make buses, first of all, buses, given their bigger form factor, present a bigger opportunity for localization in the short term. So for an industrialist, that is already creating opportunities for not only local content in terms of the materials and parts that can go into the buses, building the frame and body, the upholstery, and even touching some of the higher value aspects like the power electronics and the like. We can see that happening in the medium term. But also it provides a real solution to the bigger mobility problem, which also comes with another connotation of pollution, because the biggest import of vehicles is over 20 years of age at the time of being imported into the country.
A new car in Uganda can come in as a 20-year service vehicle from some other place. That's sold as new.
Yeah.
So I've got to believe that's all due to the price, right? That an
Yeah, the
actual
price point,
brand new
yeah.
car would be price prohibitive.
Yeah,
So you're importing 20-year-old vehicles.
yeah.
And I could see where that would be an emissions issue.
Mm.
With your buses, are they going to be gasoline, diesel, electric? What are you thinking?
So we have already gone past thinking, but we are also thinking. So right now we are doing the electric buses, and we are doing these as city buses, but we're also doing them as coaches. So the city buses, we are looking at them connecting the opportunities within the city, and then the coaches can connect the opportunities between the city and also the countryside. But we're also doing diesel buses because there is a lot of commuting between Kampala, Mombasa, Kampala, Kigali, Kampala, Dar es Salaam, basically across the borders to the neighborhood. And that is actually a very, very, very interesting opportunity there, because the people who move in those areas tend to pay premium to move by road, because it also gives you an opportunity to savor the beauty that the African landscape provides. Yeah.
Also, just like with cash for clunkers,
Yeah.
in the US 20 years ago, or 15 years ago, 20 years ago now, a new diesel bus with new technology versus what may be on the road right now is also still an improvement. Even though it may not be electric or a zero emission vehicle, it's a much lower emission vehicle.
Absolutely. That's
Paul,
right. Yeah.
where do you stand right now? Are you actually manufacturing these buses, or where is it?
Yes. So maybe to give a bit of context, we are working on about 3 aspects. So one, we are setting up a plant, and we are commissioning this plant in October. Actually, October 7th is when the Kiira vehicle plant is going to be commissioned. And this is the biggest, most competent, and most capable bus manufacturing plant on the African continent today. Secondly, we have done technology transfer with a Chinese OEM, which is into a wide range of segments, but specifically they have a good platform for both electric and diesel buses. And with them, we started the product development, and we've been able to manufacture 39 pieces to do market validation. And these are doing quite well. We have over 600,000 kilometers of e-bus on the road in Uganda, and we have learned a lot from that area. And of course, on the other side, given where we are actually a trailblazing initiative. We pave the road, we walk. The ecosystem is not yet in place. So past setting up a company, setting up a factory, we are actually at the foot of setting up the industry in its entirety. So working on the talent, we've sent some of our engineers over here in the US at the Ford Tech Center down at Kettering. Even right now, we have an engineer there, New Ego in Ann Arbor, Beta EAE Systems, and other places to come and get to. You can never, one of my professors when I was younger in college actually told me that it's not possible for you to give the right answer if you've never been exposed to it or the way of finding out the right answer. So we do believe that the only way we're going to have our engineers get it right, because the market is ready, and the market already has experience with world-class technology. So they're not going to take any low-cost anything. They're going to take a product that is fit for purpose and competent for the intent for which it has been made. So we're intentional about also building the talent to get this up and running. We have already signed a few early bird contracts with clients on different models. We have leasing arrangements, operating leases. We have long-term rentals, which are not leases, but they are long-term rentals. We actually run the car. We offer the vehicle as a service. And then we also have clients who are picking the vehicle. They go, they do a direct product sell or purchase. Yeah.
And Andy, how did you get all connected with this?
Oh gosh.
So you're a lecturer at Kettering University.
That's right. In mechatronic systems. I worked for 20 years for a technology company, and MIT was a customer of mine, which through some hops got me to seeing these guys in 2008, and we were doing remotely controlled science labs. And 4 years later, as I was doing training in Makerere, they thought I was, that's the university that this project came out of.
Where
They thought it, Yeah, they thought that I was from Boston, not realizing I was from Flint, Michigan.
Mm,
And they took me downstairs and said, "We're making this car, but the one thing we can't figure out how to make, or we can't source at the time, was an ECU, was a vehicle control unit."
mm,
And we took the same technology from National Instruments that we were running the remotely controlled science labs, which are mechatronic systems. And I said, "I think if you do these things in the software, listen to these sensors and send out these signals, you can make an ECU out of this, a vehicle control unit." And 2 years later, the car was running. I'm blown away by the ability of the team to take what seems like impossible tasks and turn them into reality.
And so that's how you got it. You reached out to Andy because you needed people from universities to come help teach your engineers what they should be doing. Is that right?
So that's part of the puzzle. What happened at that time is there was a professor at MIT, and he's still there. He's called Jesus de Alamo. So Jesus had invented, at that time it looked like a massive invention, a way in which students from across the globe could continue, students at MIT, but who were not staying maybe in the United States, mainly these were from India, they could continue doing their research on real equipment at MIT when they
Remotely.
would go down
Mm.
to India. And that was really ingenious at the time, because then he wouldn't lose time. And time is important in research. So as he moved around presenting this, the Carnegie Corporation of New York advised him to, frame a project, because they thought that this was a much more needed solution for Africa, where in some cases students actually complete an engineering degree without having adequate laboratory experience, which presents a very serious bottleneck on how they can be engineers in a field. And perhaps that's why you say that the better part of Africa is on the consumptive side of technology, and a little has been being done. So it is through that Andrew was an academic advisor for National Instrument, which was a core technology supplier for the iLabs project. And that's how we got linked up through that collaboration. Uganda was one of the 3 universities which participated. The other one was Obafemi Awolowo in Nigeria. And then we had the University of Dar es Salaam down in Tanzania. Yeah, 2008, that's how we met. And then we continued. He was really
The biggest thing,
hands-on.
the biggest thing for
Yeah.
me was I kept going out and doing week-long trainings, and then a year later, the most remote controlled lab papers are being written out of Uganda.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, well, I should probably go back there." And then they show a car half built, and I say, "Well, I think we could do it this way." 2 years later, there's a car being built. And that led to the government taking notice in Uganda uh, and providing a ramp of funding for the project that we're now talking about, which is $100 million factory
Yeah.
and the start of a new auto industry.
Yeah. So it's government funding that's gotten you this far.
Right from the word go. Yeah, I was a teacher in engineering school, and that's what I taught and did as my day job. But I was always keen on how we could really tap into this talent. It's very raw but vibrant talent at the university to do great things that could provide opportunity for the people on the continent. And when this opportunity arose for us to be able to tap into this area, and then His Excellency the President moved himself to see that this dream, which was looking daunting and perhaps not practical, and maybe not to be the focus of Africa at the time, should be realized by providing the seed funding. We were able to move to where we are. He has continued to really be the champion for this initiative, to be the lead and ensuring that everything. And right now, even as we go to market, we say that he's the billboard, the biggest billboard for mobility industrialization on the African continent. Yeah.
One other thing for context for your viewers, I think we often don't have a really good rooting in how many people we're talking about. So Uganda is, when I went there the first time, it's 37 million people. So Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, and now it's 47 million. So add Tennessee to that. You can't go to a place like that and go to a university with fabulous minds in it and not find people that are capable and can do this kind of project. And up until this point, most of those smart minds were going to the UK or the Netherlands or the US, uh, because there was no local opportunity for them to do something meaningful in engineering. And I think that you'll say that, or you would say that the Kiira Motors Corporation is giving a path for people to stay in the country.
Absolutely. It's creating a platform for young talent in electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, architecture, design, computer science, and all of these aspects to apply themselves. So now they feel they have a place to belong at home and be able to realize the dream that would have been very far if Kiira Motors Corporation
Look, this is why every country, if it gets the chance, wants its own automotive industry, because it creates so many jobs, so much wealth. But as you also know, the automotive industry just eats capital for breakfast. So it's great that the government's gotten you this far. What are your plans for going forward? Will it continue to invest? Because, I mean, you could be talking not hundreds of millions, but billions of dollars going forward.
We are alive to the fact that certainly a certain number of billions are required to convert this into a real commercial space of application and really industrialization, as it should be, seeing more and more of the value chain coming within the continent. And that is where the opportunity lies. Now, we also realize that this capital-intensive nature requires a lot of partnership and collaborations within the country and outside the country, across the globe, to ensure that this takes off. So we are keen, and even when I come here, I make some time to reach out and talk to a few people to see what is practical. How can we make this happen? How can we raise the capital? How can we realize the collaboration? Whether it is actual investment or technology partnership, we really are alive to the need that is required to move this from a dream to something that is being felt and touched in the marketplace today, and then to add industry that is creating real opportunity across the value chain. Yeah.
And Andy, you're sort of an outsider that's sort of an insider too. Where do you see it all going?
Where do I see it all going? This is an opportunity to see how, well, you know, I watch your shows covering government-run car companies in China that may or may not end up being viable. But what I see in Africa is, particularly from a US perspective, a North American perspective, I see a market that we just don't seem to see or understand. So if you can get the right product in the hands of, I said 47 million people in Uganda, the East Africa community, which works as an economic bloc, is 150 to 180 million people, depending on which numbers you're looking at. That's half the size of the US. And we're not making cars for them. We make cars with heaters in them. They don't need a heater. Another thing that I like to bring up with the students when I make this point, I should say the young engineers now, when they started, they were students. But what happens when the first autonomous vehicle meets an elephant? What's it going to do?
Or a pothole.
Or a pothole. On roads that may or may not be maintained. And the students sort of giggle, but you've got autonomy coming everywhere. In the same way that Uganda has leapfrogged into mobile payment before even we do, because we have this legacy system. I'm pointing at my credit card and my wallet. They do everything with their phone. They're going to leapfrog the same way into autonomy, and nobody is making that car. The car that can meet an elephant on the road. And some of the students, and when I also do this with my students here, and I say, what should it do? Well, stop. And I'm like, maybe that's not a good idea with an elephant if it's in a certain time of its life and it's angry. Maybe you want to take evasive action. But nobody's making that here because it's in such a remote place that we don't seem to think about. And so I think there's an opportunity to not only create a standard market for all the good work that is the nuts and bolts of making a car company, but for one of these young engineers to make something that hasn't been made before, because nobody's thinking about it. That's the opportunity, I think, in sub-Saharan Africa.
And a final question here, Paul. Kiira Motor Corporation. What is Kiira?
So we have the River Nile, which I think is the longest north-facing river in the world. And the source of the River Nile, arguably, is Lake Victoria, right in Ginger. So the Basoga, who are the native people around the source of the Nile, were always referring to the sound that is made by the waterfalls on the river as Kiira. Kiira meaning it's rattling as it falls. So that's how the name Kiira comes up, the traditional name of Kiira. And for us, it represents a source of not only water for life, water for irrigation, generation of electricity, but also transport. So it is the embodiment of the work that we do at Kiira Motors Corporation.
And I love that. I never knew Kiira was actually the original name of the Nile River.
There you are.
Here we're doing an automotive show when we're
I'm telling
talking
you,
geography in Africa. I love it.
Yeah.
Look, I think what you're doing is terrific. I wish you the greatest of luck. It
Thank
must
you.
be so exciting starting a car company. I say car, but buses, trucks from scratch. The way you're doing it, I think this is a great story.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
And Andy, I got to thank you for putting me in contact with Paul here and learning all about it.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, I do.
Paul, what do you think the opportunities to collaborate in Michigan and in developed countries' auto industries are going forward?
Good question.
Yeah, don't
Sorry.
even get me started there, because you know that the moment the president gave us the mandate to do this, I actually called you, and in 2012 we set up a mission here to look out for three things. One, we wanted to do talent development. We wanted to bring some of our young talent here, and actually we managed to bring out a number of people. I think across the years we've brought in excess of 25 people over here for between 8 weeks to 2 years to learn how things are done and to have the exposure to the right way of doing things, because we don't also want to waste time which we don't have on reinventing the wheel. We want to know what the industry is doing and then how we can really relate and domesticate it to solve our unique problems of mobility. But also we wanted to get to interact with experts to help us with studies, whether it was environmental impact assessment for the site, whether it was a business case. And we managed to get a wonderful team of people out here, RL International, Robert Cox and his colleagues. They came and helped us to do and knock out a space from which we have continued to implement that blueprint with a couple of modifications to get where we are today. But we also wanted to look for technology that is mature. The people are already exposed to Mercedes-Benz, Volvo, MAN, and all of this kind of technology. So you cannot take them back to the dinosaur stage. They really need to get something perhaps even better than what they're seeing, so that they see the value proposition of choosing something local, not because it's local, but because it's actually competent for the purpose. So we came out here and we were able to start engaging with the industry on the technology front, and we picked up a few pieces from here, especially on powertrain optimization technology, ECUs. We worked with Inigo in Anaba, which was an ECU developer at the time. We remember we worked with a number of people here who were into motor control, electric motor development, and that helped us to start understanding the task which was ahead of us. I must say that if I knew what I know today, this is not a path I would have taken.
I'm glad you did not know, because I'm glad you got this going.
So sometimes being innocent is great, because you just do things that
That's right. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, you don't know.
Right.
You don't know.
Very good. Well, thanks both of you for the time. Really appreciate it.
The pleasure is all ours. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah.